what is a nation state? If the nation state is the dominant political container within which citizens are present, what is it? What does it look like? The nation state, the term itself is a hyphenated term, as we all know, right? So it's the nation and the state. The nation could be defined in multiple ways. The nation could be at one end of the definitional spectrum. The nation is a voluntary association of individuals who wish to get political power. On the other hand of the political spectrum, of the definitional spectrum, a nation is a group with certain prescribed characteristics such as ethnic origins, linguistic community, religious association, regional association, right? These are some among several ways in which nations can constitute themselves. Again, these are not necessarily in contradiction to each other. An ethno-linguistic group would nevertheless have to choose to define themselves as a nation and choose to pursue political power as an ethno-linguistic group. But what these two spectrums of the definition of the term nation tell us is that on one end, a nation is simply voluntary association. You choose to be part of a nation. And on the other end of this definitional spectrum, a nation is a group of people who are brought together by characteristics that they have no control over, whether it be their religious community, their appearance, their ethnic background, their tribal associations, their linguistic identity, etc. The structure of the modern nation state owes its origins largely to the Peace of Westphalia, which was the name for two peace treaties signed in 1648. Now, these peace treaties brought to an end the 30 Years' War in Europe, which raged across the continental Europe and brought together multiple actors, multiple empires in opposition to each other. What the Peace of Westphalia does is that it lays the foundation of the principles of sovereignty, which is really, again, the foundation for international relations as we know it today and the modern nation state. So the idea that each nation state has complete sovereignty over its territory and its people can be traced back to the Peace of Westphalia. But it is really in the aftermath of the First World War, when the three major empires of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and imperial or Tsarist Russia, when they collapse into multiple smaller nation states, that you see this political organization of the nation state really emerging. Before the First World War, you could have multiple national groups situated in the same political unit. For example, the Austro-Hungarian Empire could contain within itself Serbs, Croats, Czechs, Germans, Poles, and many other groups. But it is after the First World War that the demand for political organization and political power on the basis of national identity became accepted, and that became the dominant mode of organization as we know it today. And of course, as countries, as decolonization takes place, as empires disintegrate across Africa, South America, and Asia, the national principle extends to all of these continents as well. The nation state, therefore, is the nation's state, according to Roger Brubaker. That is a state that exists primarily for a national group, a specific national group. Now, this national group could be one among several things. It could be, as I said, a voluntary association, or it could be pre-ascribed identities. But what is important is, following Benedict Anderson's assertion, that it be an imagined community. Now, imagined in this case does not mean that it's not real. It means that members of a national group share a common imagination of how they wish to see themselves and how they wish to constitute themselves. What it also means is that in any nation state, I don't know who all my fellow citizens are, who all my fellow nationals are, but I can tell with a certain amount of confidence that they exist even if I don't know them, and that they share certain common national values which are part of our national imagination, so as to speak. What is the state then? I will employ the classical Max Weber definition of a state, which is that it's a compulsory political organization with a centralized government that maintains a monopoly of the legitimate use of force within a certain territory. For Max Weber, this notion that only states have monopoly over the legitimate use of force was very important, because it meant that the same force, when used by the state, could be legitimate and legitimized by the law, whereas similar kinds of violence employed by non-state actors would be prescribed and acted upon by the state. So, if one were to combine these two definitions, a nation state, therefore, is a state that exists for a specific national group. How one defines the national group determines, therefore, who has power within the nation state. If one defines the national group at the heart of the nation state in an expansive manner, then the nation state and people who wield power within the nation state are defined in a broader way. If one defines it in a narrower manner, then of course it is easier for the nation state to classify certain classes of people as outsiders who don't belong to the narrow definitions of who constitutes a national insider.